just said, I am the Assistant Director of Admissions and Information Management for the School of Medicine. I'm just going to share my screen quickly. Okay, got it. Okay. Hopefully everybody can see this. So I've been at New York Medical College for about 9 years, almost 9 years. And I've kind of gone through all of the stages of the admissions process. So from reviewing applications to reviewing your letters of recommendation and making sure you have everything that the committee wants to see. So I should be able to answer most of your questions, if not all of them, about admissions and hopefully about the curriculum as well. So at New York Medical College, we actually have 5 different schools. So we have the School of Medicine, which I am here to kind of represent to you. We offer a Doctor of Medicine degree to about 200, give or take 215 students each year. We also have the Graduate School of Basic Medical Sciences. The graduate school offers master's and PhD programs in disciplines like biochemistry, molecular biology, cell biology, among a few others. Through the Graduate School of Basic Medical Sciences, our MD students have the opportunity to go for a combined MD PhD program. So if you wanted to spend a few extra years getting your PhD, once you've entered medical school, you would have the opportunity to do that. That is not decided at admissions. That is a program where you have to complete 1 full year of medical school successfully, and then you're given the option to enroll in the PhD program. We also have the School of Health Science and Practice. So the School of Health Science and Practice offers doctorate programs in physical therapy and speech and language pathology, master's programs in public health with a bunch of different concentrations, as well as some certificates. Through the School of Health Science and Practice at New York Medical College, you can also go for the dual MD MPH if you want to. Again, that program is for all students within the School of Medicine already. Once you've completed a first full year of medical school successfully, you're given the option to enroll in the MPH, the Masters of Public Health, or any of the certificate programs. A lot of our students also take part in just a certificate program, if that's available to you as well. On our campus, we also have the Touro College of Dental Medicine. So the dental school is relatively new. They just graduated their first class last year, and they enroll about 115 dental students each year. We also have the School of Health Sciences for Touro College. They have a nursing program on our campus as well. So the nursing program is more geared towards nurses that are in the field working that want to come back and get their BSN. And so it's a much smaller program than all of the others, but they are on our campus, and all of our schools share campus resources, campus housing, the anatomy lab, the library, the bookstore, the cafeteria, the lecture halls are predominantly used, at least in the School of Medicine, by the med students, but they're available to all schools, all students. Okay, our location is really ideal for medical school. We are located on county property. So in addition to having the school resources, we are also located right next to Westchester Medical Center. We also have Maria Faris Children's Hospital. We have the Westchester County Emergency Services Department, so the police, fire, EMS, the SWAT training facilities. We also have the Westchester County Medical Examiner's Office right behind our basic science building, along with some county research labs. We have a facility, it's called the Clinical Skills Center, and within the Clinical Skills Center, we have a biotech incubator. So we have small startup companies and entrepreneurs. Within that biotech incubator, we have workbenches available for startups. So that's a pretty cool little part of the Clinical Skills Center, and they've actually expanded more recently the biotech incubator. And our Clinical Skills Center is going through a massive expansion within the next upcoming years as well. Okay, so admissions requirements for the School of Medicine. We require all of our applicants to have a bachelor's degree from within the United States or Canada. We do not accept international students aside from those students from Canada. So you would need a bachelor's degree from the US or Canada. Within your degree, we require these prerequisite coursework. And so 2 semesters of general biology, 2 semesters of gen chem, a semester of organic chem with lab, physics, 2 semesters, English 2 semesters, and biochem. Biochem with or without a lab. We also require a recent MCAT within the last 3 years. Let's see. And we require the Casper situational judgment test. And then part of your application would be letters of evaluation. So there are 2 different methods. For a traditional applicant, we would require either a committee letter or 2 science faculty letters and 1 non-science letter. The non-science letters does not have to be from faculty. It could be from volunteering, could be from research, but the 2 science letters have to be from faculty that taught you for course credit. The committee letter is not a letter packet. It is a true committee letter where you have sat before your committee. They've given you an evaluation, and they oftentimes will attach other letters of recommendation or evaluations to the committee letter. The other method is if you are a non-traditional student. So if you graduated from your undergraduate degree more than 3 years ago, we do not require academic letters from you. They can be academic, but we require 3 letters of evaluation. So if you've been working for the last 3 years, an employment letter might be more reflective of who you are and your work ethic. They do not have to be from academics. Okay. Okay, so last year's application data is a little skewed. This is the 2020-2021 cycle. We had a record number of applicants apply to New York Medical College. We had 15,294 total applicants. We interviewed just over 800 of those applicants, and we matriculated a class of 211. Students were coming from 15 different US states. We also had 9 Canadian students within that class. A little more than half of the class was from New York State, and 98 undergraduate schools were represented. 48% of our class was female, and the average age of the incoming matriculated class was 24 years old. We've seen a trend over the last couple of years of a more mature class, more mature applicant pool, really. More and more applicants are taking the time to go for a master's or conduct research. We have a lot of applicants that have a complete career change before deciding that they wanted to go into medicine. So it's completely normal to not be a traditional applicant. We do have plenty of traditional applicants that come right out of undergrad. It's an average for a reason. We have both traditional and non-traditional students, but you shouldn't be discouraged if you fall into either category, because both are heavily represented in the class. And then just the basic stats from last cycle. The overall GPA was a 3.69. The science GPA was a 3.47, and the MCAT was a 514. Again, those are averages for a reason. We have students that score higher and lower in different categories across the board. So don't be discouraged, but those are kind of targets. So if you're considering applying to medical school and you're really far off from these numbers, either high or low, you might want to consider other programs that are more in line with your overall scores. And also caution you because there are different majors that have different difficulties, different coursework that might be more difficult than others. So this is not the end all be all, but this is just in general, these are our averages. Okay, so a little bit about the curriculum. This I'm not too well versed on, only because it changed very recently for next year. This was released about a week ago. So I'll explain it just a little bit very briefly. They've decided to continue with the system-based learning. Your first year ends a little bit early in March. Or I'm sorry, not your first year, but your phase 1, I should say. And then you jump right into system-based learning in April. And you continue system-based learning until February when you have your step, where you prepare for your step 1. And then the idea behind this is that you would start your clinical core clerkships earlier than we had in the past. So it gets you prepared and ready to move into a clinical setting earlier than students previously had. Then in April, this is not a hard deadline also, April, we prepare for step 2. And then May, you'd begin in your third year, you'd begin in phase 3 on your 2 rotations. The clinical core years are, your clerkships are set for you. So everybody has standard clerkships you have to participate in. You have to do peds, you have to do radiology. There's just certain clinical core courses that you have to do. There is just some exception. You have electives that you can participate in. And so those are a little bit more flexible. You can choose to go outside of our affiliated clerkships and rotations for those. And we don't really hold our students back. It's a little bit more paperwork if you wanted to go outside of our affiliates, but it's definitely possible. We have a lot of students, especially from California, that choose to go back to California. And so they would like to do their clerkship and rotations, as many as they can, wherever they'd like to do their residencies. Those 2 years are really important for your residency placements because it's like an extended interview. You get a couple of weeks to make a really good impression, which is really why those are so important. And they've started those phases a little bit earlier. Let's see. The next slide is just a general screenshot of the first year class schedule. And this is a really heavy workload. This is a heavy work week. Most of them are not going to be this heavy for you. It'll be a little bit lighter, but you can kind of see where or how it's broken down. You typically have like a lecture or in this case, gross anatomy, your first block would be in the mornings, and then you would have lunch, and then you have a small class or independent study or clinical skills training in the afternoon. So you can see on this Monday, I can't see my screen, I'm sorry. You would have like histology perspective of female and then male. The next day you would have gross anatomy. Gross anatomy is taught in person. A lot of schools pre-pandemic had moved to a digital anatomy cadaver. We have a digital anatomy cadaver in the library. It's available for all students to use if you ever want to. But all of our med students have hands-on didactic training, and that's never going to go away. So if you'll see here, there are recordings and readings and atlas guides available to you. With COVID, we had a lot more class recordings available to students rather than in-person lessons, but all of your anatomy work will be done in person. You make all of these incisions and you do all of the dissections yourself. Another benefit to doing it in person is that we have about 25 to 30 cadavers on the floor at any given time. You have about 8 students assigned to each cadaver, and you're broken down into 2 groups. So there's 3 or 4 of you working on a cadaver at a time, but you have an entire floor of cadavers to look at. So different cadavers will have had different histories. If somebody was a smoker or they had cancer or they died of a heart attack, you'll have all different conditions to look for in different cadavers. We actually had about 4 or 5 years ago a cadaver where all of the organs were reversed. So when the students opened up the cadaver, they kind of took a step back and said, the heart is on the wrong side, the liver is on the wrong side. What do we do? This doesn't look like our textbook, but that's how medicine is. Not everything is going to be learned. You might have to learn as you go. And it's really interesting to be able to see different cadavers with different issues instead of just the one available to you that has, standard issues. Down here on September 22nd, 22, physical exam skills, the abdomen. So those physical exam skills take place in the Clinical Skills Center. The Clinical Skills Center is really such a huge part of your medical training. We like to get you in as early as possible to do just even a basic history encounter with patients. So we use patient actors. The actors are really good at what they do. We, again, are fortunate enough to be located very close to Manhattan. There's a lot of very professional, very good actors. They can cry in command. They can be irately angry because they've been in your waiting room for 2 hours and they're waiting to see you as their patient. And so the idea is that you're exposed to all different patients ahead of encountering them in a clinical setting. In addition to standardized patient encounters that you'll have in the center, there's also simulation mannequins. We have Harvey mannequins. We have about 100 different task-based trainers. So if you're learning how to intubate somebody, we have an intubation mannequin and tools for you to learn how to do that. We have different standard simulation mannequins. So we have 4 adult mannequins, 2 pediatric mannequins, an infant mannequin. And then we have the Harvey trainers. The Harveys are just the upper abdomen, and they have 40 different cardiovascular conditions that you can work through. The simulation mannequins are much more advanced. They kind of represent everything that a human would. They would even recognize a drug that you're giving them in the dose that you are administering. So if you're giving them epinephrine, it'll recognize that is the intended drug, and it'll dictate the dosage through the airflow through your syringe. And the mannequins' vitals will change according to exactly what you're giving to them. So it's all very exciting. Okay, I have a question. Do you only have access to Clinical Skills Center during that period, and can you go other times to practice? So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute. Okay. So the Clinical Skills Center is the only clinical skills center of its kind in Westchester County. So that being said, it is used by Westchester Medical Center's residents. We have the emergency service department across the street, and the servicemen will come in and use the center for training as well. The center has availability for you to go in and use the rooms, not standardized patients. The standardized patient actors have to be scheduled to come up, and they're paid actors, so that has to be done in advance. But if you wanted to use task trainers or look at the simulation mannequins or the Harvey mannequins, you can. You just have to work with the center to see when they have availability. So it's not like it's open 24/7 like the anatomy lab. It is very much a used space. And so those any kind of off time that you wanted to go in and practice, you just have to schedule it out with the center. Does that answer your question, George?
Yes, thank you. It's great to know that you can schedule and keep practicing on your skills. You mentioned about the gross anatomy lab being open 24/7, so you can go at any time.
You can go at any time. So as long as the other class isn't going down. I mentioned there are 8 students assigned to each cadaver and you're broken down into 2 groups. So basically the lab will run twice. So during that structured lab time, you won't be able to go in during the other group's lab session. But at 3 o'clock in the morning, if you wanted to go in and look at the cadavers, you would have access 24/7.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anyone else? I'm happy to answer any questions.
Right. I have a question here. They want to know what financial scholarships, et cetera, does your school offer, especially to students of color?
Yeah, so we have need-based scholarships. There are no merit-based scholarships at this time. Everything is done through the financial aid office. We work with financial aid to get all of the data that we need. You would have to submit your parents' IRS forms, yours. Everything is considered and they're all need-based.
Okay. Another question. Student, they want to know how many clinical hours do you consider acceptable? So I presume they're trying to find out exactly what would you consider significant clinical experience?
That's a good question for applicants. We're looking for clinical exposure. You know what, I'm reluctant to give you numbers because with COVID, we understand that it hasn't been accessible to everybody to get a number of clinical hours and meaningful hours. I think that the difference is even if you have a small amount of clinical exposure, but it's more meaningful, that might be looked upon a little bit better than a lot of less meaningful exposure.
Okay, all right, thank you. So this question is, what kind of academic, personal, financial, and career counseling is available to students?
Yeah, so we have an entire student support department. They do a lot of academic counseling. You're paired as soon as you matriculate with an older student, either an M2, an M3, or an M4 that has been through the gauntlet already of their first year, and they're there to help you if you need it. We have a lot of mental health and wellness support on campus. Most people don't realize that, you know, when you go from high school to college, you might be the top of your class. When you go from college to medical school, in college, you might have been the top of your class. When you get to medical school, every single person was the top of their class. And not everybody can be the top of the medical school class. So mental health is really important at all medical school institutions. So we've been building ours up over the past couple of years, and they have, I get emails all the time about yoga and activities and just checking in with students. In terms of academic support, there's a lot of step 1 prep, step 2 prep. It's all available to you. It's not required of anyone, but it's there for you if you need it, for sure. The classes are pass fail, yes.
This question is a follow-up to the other question in some regards. It's asking about what resources you have for minority serving students.
Yeah, so we do have an Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Dr. Militian is the Vice Chancellor of Diversity. He is an alumni of New York Med. He graduated in 2002. He is also in the US Navy. He headed the COVID operations at the Javits Center. Also developed a wing at Walter Reed Hospital. He's a neurosurgeon by education. And really, he's there for our students. He's like really an outstanding gentleman. In his department, there are 2 people in his department, and their door is always open.
All right, Selter or Kelter, would you like to ask your question openly? Okay, if not, can you tell us a little bit about resources for USMLE?
Oh, so resources. This is me trying to regurgitate what I've heard from the student support services. I know that they have like training manuals, or not training manuals, but support materials available to you. They also host programs like training sessions in person, but I do not know enough about that portion of the academic support.
Hi, thank you so much. Sorry about that, but I appreciate
It's okay.
the answer.
All right, perfect.
I have
Thank
another.
you. Yeah,
I have
you
another
have-
question here
Sure.
in the chat. Could you speak more about the MD PhD program? So I guess more specifically, Jessica, I'm not sure what you'd like to know about it. The MD first you have to be accepted into the School of Medicine and complete your first full year of medical school. Once you've done that successfully, it's kind of like you opt into a PhD program. We know that you're capable of handling the coursework. If you're passionate about some research, you can partake in it. But do you have a more specific question about the MD PhD program? You can complete it at any point in time over your time at New York Med. So as long as you speak up before you graduate, if you decide in the middle of your 4th year that you wanted to pursue a PhD, you would have the opportunity to. You're not limited just before you graduate.
Awesome. This other question I have privately, what type of clinical sites, example, private and public hospitals, as well as rural settings, are available for rotations?
Yeah, so we have a pretty big network of affiliates all over Westchester, New York, Jersey, Connecticut, even up in Putnam County. The list is way too many to name, but there's a VA hospital up in Montrose, New York. We had a lot down in Manhattan, St. Joe's in Jersey. We have a very big network, but you're not limited to that network. Also, you can go out of that network if you chose to.
Okay, I believe Uha had a question.
Yeah.
Hi, I actually want to know a little bit more about the culture there and kind of how the students are, their backgrounds. Is it a diverse applicant pool? I know you said earlier that a lot of them are actually trending towards non-traditional. So I just want to know what kind of backgrounds you've seen thus far.
We have students from all walks of life. Most recently, we have a mother of 2 that is in her 50s. And so there's not one type of applicant. The culture on campus is really like a good culture. We have a lot of students, most of the students live on campus. And it's a little bit different because it's a health science graduate campus. So all of the students on campus are here for health science related programs. It's a little bit more mature than having like undergraduate students living down the hall from you or walking around on campus. And everybody's here for the same reason. Having most of the students living on campus, we have like 3 and 4 bedroom apartments. We have singles, studios, 2 bedrooms, but especially with the 3 and 4 bedroom apartments for our med students. If you chose to live in housing, you would have like 3 built-in study partners, friends across the hall. So it creates, it's just different. It just creates a really good sense of community. We're pass fail, so the level of competition is a little bit less than other schools that are not pass fail, because it took that part of the competition out of it. You're not competing for grades. You're just kind of all trying to get to the same point of being a good physician and delivering quality care to your patients. Yeah, I mean, I'm biased, but I think our students are really great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Next question. Will you continue your interviews virtually, or will they go back to being in person or a hybrid?
Yeah, so I think it hasn't been decided yet, but we've been discussing a hybrid platform for interviews. I was talking to your administration before, and the virtual interviews are really convenient for both our interviewers, our staff, and for you guys, because you won't have to travel, you don't have to pay for flights and hotels. But having you on campus is really special to us. Our campus is really beautiful, and we'd love to see you guys in person and meet you in person.
This question is from Nora. Nora, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, presentation, by the way. I was just curious on, since NYMC is so close to New York City itself, do you guys have opportunities to help disadvantaged communities that may not have reliable access to healthcare for students?
Yeah, our students, first of all, our students are very involved in many different aspects of healthcare and helping disadvantaged and underprivileged communities. I say that because we also have a health clinic in Harlem. It's called La Casita de la Salud, and the student-run clinic. So that specifically helps underprivileged population within Harlem, but that's not limited. You're not limited to that. There are many other opportunities. Our students volunteer all the time.
Thank you. That's some really good work.
Sure.
Great. Jessica wants to know about your residency match rate. She wants to know if there's any data on what specialties or types of residencies that students generally go into.
Yeah, so we just had our match day on the 18th, as did the rest of the country. We had 100% match rate, and the data is posted on the website. So you can look at all of the independent matches that our students matched into, specialties. We had a lot of students go into primary care. We had a number go into anesthesiology, pediatrics, but you can take a look at that list if you are interested in something more specific. You might get a better feel for how many students matched, where they matched to. It's posted on the site.
All right, Jojo, would you like to ask your question openly?
Sure. By the way, thank you very much, Kristen, for the presentation. I guess what I'm wondering is what types of research opportunities are available to medical students, so those who are not enrolled in the PhD program, and about what percentage of students pursue research while they're at NYMC?
Yeah, so most of our students pursue research at New York Med, and most of our students are not in the PhD program. So a lot of students have in the past, I should say, chosen to do research in between first and second year because you have a lot of downtime during those couple of months. It's up to you individually if you wanted to continue research throughout the year. Some students find the medical school workload to be a lot, and they don't continue their research. There are some students that have no problem with it and and keep going, you can conduct research at New York Med within the Graduate School of Basic Medical Sciences. I've also had students conduct research up at Westchester Medical Center, which is the equidistance from the housing complex as your academic building. So you're not limited to research or the PhD program. The administration actually really encourages everyone to conduct research, and they're starting to instill different research concentration within the curriculum.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I have another question. Are there any study abroad programs? There are international partnerships that we've had. They were suspended because of COVID, but I see them opening up again. They are in place. It's just a matter of traveling with COVID at this time.
Is there an email or a person that students can contact if they have additional questions?
Yeah, sure. So you can reach out to our general email address. It's mdadmit, mdadmit @nymc.edu. And if it's not a question for admissions, if it's a question for academic support or student affairs or financial aid, we'll direct your question to the right place and get you an answer.
Do you mind typing that in the chat for those students who
Absolutely.
maybe can find that? All right, while she does that, are there any additional questions? Okay. Well, it seems that we're going to be closing up a little bit earlier tonight. Thank you so very much for providing your information in this presentation. I know our students were asking some really great questions and the information was very helpful. It was a pleasure meeting you, and just want to wish everyone a good night. And thank you once again, Ms. Nestler, for your presentation. Have a good night,
Thank you
everybody.
for having me.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Thank you.